And we are back for night 2 of the Trumplican National Convention. Welcome. I think we have a lot to talk about. De'Andre, how are you, my brother?
I am amazing. And yourself?
You know what? I feel a lot better tonight compared to how I felt last night. I must say that tonight was for me a better night too, because it really wasn't a home run. There's a lot to talk about. So I guess to begin, what are your thoughts about tonight's Trumplican convention update? And Angela, don't be grossed out, sweetheart. They did not hit any home runs tonight.
Yeah, tonight, again, I will admit that, yes, I'll admit tonight, it's kind of one of those, like, it was definitely, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to give myself a moment before I started watching. So I started off and then I gave myself a moment. So I didn't start on until 9 o'clock, about 9:15.
So you missed the Navajo vice president.
No, I got that. I got the beginning, okay. But then I had to give myself a minute. Because
all the way from the United Arab Emirates, Dr. Stoner, all the way from United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, I had to give myself a moment. And I followed you. I followed your live. I was on, I was messaging on there. There were just so many things. I will say that, truth be told, Tiffany, I don't know if I want to say Tiffany.
I'm trying to get like you, Chris.
Tiffany gave the speech Donald Jr. should have gave yesterday. And
you thought that Tiffany's speech was really good.
I thought Tiffany gave a better speech when it came to talking about being one of the children of Donald Trump. I think Tiffany gave the better speech of the heart of it. The reason why I say Eric's didn't give the same that Tiffany is because I kind of felt like Eric was trying to, I feel like Eric was that child that got put outside of the house and he was trying to get back in the house. It was sad because it was like he was trying to vie for Trump's attention. But I think, again, Tiffany gave, but I did not like the fact that she tried to make herself trying to make herself seem as if she was like the American people. The graduation and things of that nature. I know for a fact that you aren't going to have a hard time looking for a job. You're not going to sit here and tell me that you got student loans. So don't try to make yourself seem like the hardships of what it meant. Yeah, you might have had to graduate on Zoom like everybody else, but yeah, you did not. You don't have the same. And Miss Sykes and I, we went back and we listened. We were together tonight because some of that stuff that was being said was absolutely asinine. But again, we just got a lot. We got a lot.
De'Andre, I want you to think about the biggest lie told tonight, and I want the exact same thing to go for those of you who are watching. What was the biggest lie that you heard tonight? I'll say this. Mm-hmm. Tiffany Trump did the best of the night, in my opinion. Her speech was the best speech. I think that the fact that Tiffany Trump is really kind of on the outside of the Trump organization maybe makes her perhaps a little bit more of a human being than some of the other members of the Trump family. I think that may have played a part in it. I definitely feel as though that Eric's speech was okay. I mean, he didn't write it, but it wasn't as well delivered. And nothing from anybody tonight had any of the heart that we heard in last week's DNC. Last night, different. I felt that, Donald Trump Jr. did, whatever his name is. Yeah, that other kid did a great job. Don Trump Jr., his speech hit all the notes. But when it came down to tonight, again, Tiffany did a good job, but I don't think it really was any selling points. And I don't think they won over any people. But then tonight, the lies got bigger. Tonight, the lies got more brazen. I felt a lot better watching tonight because I knew that the fact checkers were out there. I was watching the live tweets come in. They went too big. You bring on the president of the Navajo Nation when we know for a fact that the members of the Navajo Nation just had to beg you for their coronavirus package and relief that you allowed to spread like wildfire throughout most of our Native American or American Indian tribes. So that was so easy and so easy to dispel. The same thing as when you brought in Bondi, whatever. You brought in people that are right there in the heart of the different scandals that you brought to the American people. So easy to disprove it. I do think that Jamel says that Tiffany was completely tone deaf. That was also reiterated by McKee. You're right. I think that it was tone deaf. I think Jamel says the biggest lie was that Trump cares about the country.
And that's part of my biggest lie, Jamel. I believe that's part of my biggest lie.
Casey fell asleep. Dr. Washington fell asleep.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Angie is saying that, and I love the fact that Jamel said that because of the fact that, and it goes again to me between that Nick Sanderman and adding Daniel Cameron, you added 3 individuals Tonight was not a good night for you to do, because I think the biggest lie for me, though, was them. I think the biggest lie, it was on the tip of my tongue. I just lost it because it goes beyond just he's an advocate for women. Because when they did that segment about women, I don't know if you caught it, Zach, but I put on your status because they threw around this comment, family first.
Yeah,
and it goes back to my statement from last night. Because of the fact that, he tried to say that, this is not the party that believes in family, but here we go. They brought it up. I said last night that this is the thing, they keep doing this whole thing about family, but yet, there's nothing that's showing family value. So again, right. I said this last night, listen, this is, again, they're supposed to be the party of the family, but again, nothing. And it took Melania Trump. Which, by the way, who I felt even.
Do we like Melania Trump? I need to know.
Mind you, I could understand nothing she was fully saying per se, but the things that I did catch, I will honestly say she probably was my better speech. I will say the reason I'm gonna say
she was your favorite speech of the night.
I would say she was the better, and only because of the fact that she did. First of all, I love the fact that what people don't. If you realize, she did not run her speech by the West Wing
that we know of.
Yeah, so he didn't, so they don't really know, and this is not the first time. She does that often. She doesn't really run. She also, the reason why I love her speech as well is because of the fact that she was a stark contrast to her husband. Because of the fact that which again, the reason I say that is because it plays to, if they do it right, it plays to the Democratic Party. Because in essence, she spoke with a sense of compassion that he doesn't speak from. She was the first one to mention the individuals who died of COVID.
What's interesting, and she did call it by the appropriate name. She didn't call it China virus, Kung flu, any of that nonsense that comes out of President Trump's mouth. But what was interesting is that you used the word empathetic to describe Melania Trump, and her affect is so just Slovenian. I guess that's the right way of saying it. Her affect is so Slovenian, which though might be a bit of an insult to people from Slovenia. So maybe I should retract that. But the bottom line is people don't associate empathy with Melania Trump. But when you compare what she said tonight to everything else that we've heard, it absolutely comes across as empathy. And it becomes empathy. And then Chris of empathy. Yeah. And then Chris states that, did any black people feel like he cares? Well, Chris, yeah, some black people did, because you have a good friend and Masonic brother on your page who was saying that this was a home run. He's praising Donald Trump. I would love to interview him. Please let him know that I would like to interview him on the 3+1 live cast. I would love to talk to a black Trump supporter, not just someone I see on the news or hear about, but I want to talk to this black unicorn. And
he's on the radio as well. So he probably invited you to his radio show too. Who knows?
No, I won't.
He's also on radio. Yeah. So and going back to her speech though, it's interesting that the reason I said again, now I'm not saying that, we should drink I'm not saying we should drink the Kool-Aid of Melania and everything else, but you have to look at, again, how they play. Unfortunately, it's, but let me also tell you, and it may be prenup required, but let me say something interesting. I find it interesting though, that again, you have to see how they played it. They shot themselves in the foot thinking that they were doing a service by putting these people in places. And unfortunately, what they did was they messed themselves up. Do you believe it? Artificial, whether you believe it or not, it's our responsibility to put it out there and say, listen, she's a contrast of what you're going to hear on Thursday. He is not going to speak like that at all.
So, I'm going to say this about Melania. I see all the I don't like Melania. I don't dislike Melania. I really don't. I think that Melania, let's call a thing. Melania Trump is 50 years old. Her husband, Donald Trump, is 74 years old. I really don't think that she signed up to be First Lady of the United States of America. I think that she signed up for a good time, for a stable life, for some citizenship, and maybe a Birkin bag. I think that she most absolutely is getting way more out of this than she ever thought she would get. I don't think this is what she wanted to do. I think that she does things on purpose, like rip trees out of the rose garden that was planted by Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, like wear shirts that say, I really don't care about the children in the cages. And I think that she's doing everything she can, including tonight's speech, as a simple act of rebellion. I think the speech was in many ways kind of like a kind of still an FU to many of the things that the president has done that has angered the American people, and her way of saying, I'm not stupid. I'm not the monster that he is. Although I'm married to him, I just want to get my bag.
And the funny thing about it is, I kind of feel like, again, I'm laughing at these comments. I'm listening to you and just like laughing.
You guys are awful.
I'm just like laughing at these comments. But again, she's
a birther with an anchor baby. Is what Jamel is saying.
Outside of Melania, I want to go back to a couple people because of the fact that
Andrew says she signed up for the worms, like that phrase, like you sleep with old people, you get worms.
Oh God. I want to go back to again this and again, if you are of Caucasian descent and you're on
the right term is white because you're offending people who are Caucasian when you say Caucasian.
Okay, if you're a white, fine. If you are a white person who are about to watch this, then I apologize in advance. How it be so ever. One of the things that bothers me to my core is I don't do well with people who highlight and politicize this white savior complex. I don't do well with that stuff. It doesn't do well, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not good for me. And so for you to put out there this police officer who went FBI agent who went out there and you were the savior of this of this baby of opioid this opioid addicted mother.
My bad. I'm sorry. That wasn't earlier. You're correct.
Yeah, the FBI agent was with the pardon. The white officer was this individual who was saving the baby. But what you did not say was, because again, you try to make it seem like they were saving this complex of saving these individuals. Let's be very clear. Let's talk about who the daddy and the mama was. The daddy and the mama of this of the baby that you saved was white parents. Right. So you saved a white child, from this opioid epidemic, right? That you call. So don't put it out there and make this, make it like you're just saving America. No, you're saving your own. And so let's start there. I didn't care for that. But then let's go back. So so we talk about children. Let's go back to Abby Johnson, this pro-life, the pro-life woman who talks about abortion, who so happens to have a black child who she adopted, and you also she has two white sons. Now, she ended up putting, what people don't realize is early on, she did a YouTube video earlier this year talking about the police will be smart if they target, because more than likely her black son will be more likely to commit a crime than her two white kids. So she understands why he would be targeted here. She said, now right now he's a young black a young brown boy, but eventually he's going to grow to be a big, potentially intimidating black boy. And I have to have different conversations with him so I can kind of see why he would be targeted than my little nerdy white kids. So again, These are things that we have, as we talked about last night. Kirk, these are things that we have to be able to bring to the forefront. We have to say, now, mind you, you're taking your lead from people, but listen, these are the same people who are saying this, and this. So it's our job, as you said last night, which I appreciate. It's our job to get on the horns, use our platform like you did yesterday. And you did that video talking about how you were still upset. We have to use our platforms and talk to everybody that we know to have these conversations saying, listen, they said this last night, but let me tell you the kind of person they are. They said this, but this is what they really believe. This is how they really feel. And then you had the nerve of that young man who got up there and told blatant lies. Yeah, the video may say one thing, but let's be very clear. You are also a disrespectful little young person who, again, has also this elitist mindset about yourself. And so tonight, they did not do a good service for themselves, putting people up there. And I don't want to get started about Daniel Cameron, because while your crazy tail was up here on the Republican stage talking about it, your aspirin should have been back in Kentucky, still making sure that somebody gets justice, that you bring justice for Breonna Taylor. So all this students,
that's not gonna happen. This is the thing.
Her name. Don't say her name.
This is the absolute thing. And I want this. I'm trying to figure out the right way of saying it, because the reality is we are not going to get justice for Breonna Taylor as long as Daniel Cameron is an attorney general, as long as Kentucky is represented by Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, as long as William Barr is Attorney General of the United States and Donald Trump is in office, because none of them are going to do anything to bring anybody to justice on behalf of Breonna Taylor, period. That's not going to happen. So when we're saying justice for Breonna Taylor, we really should be saying charges against Daniel Cameron, because he's holding up the event. He is the bottom line problem with what's holding things up and causing a failure of the system. He is right now doing the bidding of his masters to obstruct justice and to ensure that we don't have a resolution even started in that process. So people are to me, I think, unfortunately, kind of misinformed, and it's heartbreaking. We just saw today, finally protests happening in the streets for Jacob Blake. But in the course of the time span of the protests on behalf of George Floyd to now the protests on behalf of Jacob Blake, you have a whole series of injustices that have happened to Black and brown people in this country that were unknown. We're sitting here debating, and there's nothing wrong to debate the WAP. It's nothing wrong to debate the WAP. There's nothing wrong to debate Kylie Jenner being in the WAP. There's nothing wrong with talking about Brandy and Monica and this great fun time we're going to have on Monday when we look at that. But there are still grave injustices happening, where you have, the young man in Statesboro, Georgia, who is still praying to get bond for what may have been stand your ground, may not have been. But again, he's being denied due process. We have where the mother in Aurora, Colorado was pulled out of her car. Her children also handcuffed, put on the ground. We have the situation in Gwinnett County where Black women were simply talking on their porch and were accosted by an officer Oxford. You have numerous incidents of where police have emphasized brutality against Black people, but nobody's talking about it. And that's what was happening before George Floyd. That's what's going to probably happen after Jacob Blake. And the bottom line is all of the outrage and all of the protests and all of the hard work that we're doing is good because it's bringing attention to the issue. But if it doesn't change the hearts and minds of Americans at the ballot box, it will have been for nothing. People will have risked their lives marching under the threat of COVID-19 for nothing. It would have resulted in no change. The start is the protest, but the end result must come at the ballot box. And we must convince our young brothers and sisters and people of color who care and our allies who are fighting for justice to get up, to register and vote and get their friends and family to do the exact same thing. And if that's not happening, it's all for nothing. Because again, when you have an attorney general like Daniel Cameron, it's not going to go anywhere.
And I want to make sure that while we're on that subject of protesting, while we're on that subject of bringing justice, I want to send my prayers, and I want to send. And
that's Daniel Cameron.
And I want to send peace to the protesters, particularly here in Atlanta. who are protesting. I want to send some peace to you all, and I want to make sure I say that I want to, I'm for the protesting. I'm for making sure that our voices are heard. I also want to make sure that we encourage our young people to make sure that the message does not get lost in the midst of anything. There were some people, unfortunately, some things broke out kind of bad tonight in Atlanta. And so we want to make sure that, again, that our message does not get lost in, there are some, there's those rowers. There are the people who take it left, and there still are the people. So we don't want people to think that they went out there with the intent to be violent. We don't want people to go out there. People think they were intent to riot and loot. That's not the intent. They went out there to make sure that there was justice to hear for this young man. And so I want to make sure that. The second thing I want to mention is this. I find it interesting that tonight, that for the last 2 nights, because again, and I've been targeted for it even in the elections I've run in for school choice. School choice is a Republican issue. It's a conversation that Republicans have. It's very clear about that.
It's very Republican, De'Andre.
Yeah, school choice is not necessarily accepted among Democrats. Or let me take that back. In the sense of how it's presented.
Or progressives like me. Progressives like me also don't support or endorse school choice.
And I have to be very clear because of the fact that I am I do agree with certain charter schools to a degree. I do believe, however,
this much of a degree if my friend works there.
Yeah, I do believe though that schools, that local districts should have responsibility for those. I do believe that. So I was not a fan and advocate for the charter school, the commission. I really wasn't an advocate for it, but I do believe in charter school systems. I've been a president and CEO of one. I currently serve on a board of one, and so I do believe in public control of them. With that being said, though, I find it interesting that they continue to have this conversation around school choice and how he's a champion for schools, and you have an idiot as the Secretary of Education.
She was in your state today.
So
she was here in your state visiting schools in Forsyth County, where you had, I want to say maybe, I think 150 people quarantined with COVID-19.
Yeah. So I just find it interesting that they're utilizing, talk about school choice. And I find it interesting that the state of Georgia, and, they talk, there's things that, they let certain things slip out like we weren't listening. Like they mentioned that wall again. Promises kept. Well, I don't see no wall, but you mentioned
what you see are the receipts of all the poor people that gave money to the wall that they really didn't have to give because they really needed to add on to a porch to their home, or fix the plumbing for their cesspool in the back. Yet and still, they gave money to a wall that was stolen by Steve Bannon and an Iraq war vet.
Casey, I can go see my conversation with that is I think there's a misconception, though, about what standards charter schools are being held to. And so I can go on a live and have a conversation about that because I think there is a poor misconception, including funding, because there is a misconception about funding and the standards. And so it depends on no. Don't put that bad narrative out there because they do not get funded the same as public schools. So let's be very clear. So let's not touch that one because then you'll get me started.
I do not want to get you started. I have to be up at 7:00 ready to roll in the morning. I'm presenting at 7 a.m.
I'm tonight, like I said, they didn't do themselves a good thing tonight.
They made me very happy. I think you guys, I think we talked about, at least I know in one of our lives, we talk about how, I'm so you can see it all in my face. Like I'm extremely pleased with the way tonight went. It did no favors to me. It completely erased everything that last night may have possibly gotten them. And again, the lies were just too big. The fantasies were just way too egregious. There's no one in America who could watch this last night, no matter how much you want to believe, and think that nonsense was true. There's just no way.
But Casey, and speaking of that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that you all are also set up kind of how Chicago was set up. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily like how the system is set up in Chicago. And like I said, I do believe it's like the one in Detroit. And I do think that there needs to be a standard across America as it pertains to how charter schools should be functioned. So I do believe that. I believe there should be a standard, and I don't think the states should create this because then you're dealing with I think the message gets messed up. And as another completely different, but yeah, of course. So I think the narrative gets mixed up, and so I think that's where you start hearing people get the conversations mixed up about charter schools, is because there is no national standard, and I think that needs to be the conversation piece if you're going to talk about that. But again, I think privatizing it is not a good look, because again, there are some kids who get lost in the system. Yes, accountability is definitely different. So if kids get lost in the system, and I don't necessarily like that.
So one thing that was brought to me was, why didn't we give last night a grade? And let me tell you why we couldn't give why I can't give last night a grade. And I can't give that grade. I can't grade plagiarism. Like, as a teacher, when you plagiarize, you get a 0. So when you sit up and you lie to the American people, you get no credit. You get no credit for your lies. Everything said last night sounded beautiful, but they were lies. Everything said tonight sounded beautiful, but guess what, people? They were lies. When you talk about, I also wanted to share, like, the ratings for last night came out. The ratings for the first night of the Democratic National Convention were far greater than the ratings of the Republican National Convention. So also it's resonating with Americans. Like, they didn't want to watch that. So there are lots of calls to boycott, and it's obviously working because ratings were down. People don't even want to tune in and hear these lies because they know exactly what they're going to get. So that made me happy too. I'm going to tell you the truth. I honestly thought that ratings would be a little bit better because it was only an hour that was like televised on public TV. 1 hour. It's really easy to like hold someone's attention for an hour compared to the 2 hours that the DNC tried to do it, but clearly it didn't work. We will know a lot more tomorrow to see if more people tune in tonight. But even if they did tune in tonight, I don't think that they would have been convinced of anything different, because we heard nothing new but the same old lies, just told at a much higher level. And
tonight, because remember how we talked about with the DNC, their goal was to build upon it. One of the things that the RNC now has to do, because tonight we know what last night was, but they have, because now there's still a base outside of the Trump. There's still a base that they still have to try to get, and they're not doing it well.
Right.
Because again, you're not necessarily speaking to the Republican principles. You're still going based upon what Trump is. And I liked how you said that, when you're grading it, you can't grade plagiarism. One of the things that we also don't grade is we don't grade you not providing sources to your facts.
No evidence.
We don't grade that. If you don't have no footnotes, if you don't have no endnotes, if you don't have no bibliography, you don't have nothing that actually tells me, where can I go find that? Where can I actually know what you're speaking of? Because I'm still, as I said on my Facebook, still trying to find this economy that you speak of. I'm still looking for this economy y'all talking about.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because actually I want to say this about, the economy. The stock market is not the economy. So don't confuse the two things. People that are rich may very well be getting richer. Some entities and industries are booming right now because of artificial inflation. But do not forget, I had to do a little bit of research because, Kelly Loeffler is a senator right here in Georgia. And her husband is the creator, owner, inventor of the International Stock Exchange, and he is chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. You better bet your bottom dollar that there is some type of something happening that keeps those stock numbers up or inflated until this election comes through. Yes. So, I think these numbers will continue to be inflated, but I think that hopefully the American people can see through it.
Yes. Listen, we got to hit these standards. You got to hit these standards. You're not hitting these standards.
And we're going to keep the evidence going. So this is my last question for you, De'Andre, and really for everybody's watching. What can the RNC do on tomorrow night, the Mike Pence and Mama night, to make this better? What can Mama do?
It's Mama Dude can't do nothing. And Mama Dude can't do nothing. And I think Mike Pence. Now here's the interesting thing about Mike Pence.
There's something interesting about Mike Pence?
I know. I'm saying something about Indiana's crazy Mike Pence. Now, Now, mind you, what I'm about to say is interesting, but it's not necessarily a good thing, but it's interesting. It's kind of also how I feel about Melania Trump. Now, you got to remember the moment that they were going through the COVID, oh Lord, you know what, Lamont, you almost had me about to cuss like he was gonna cuss yesterday. The one thing about Mike Pence is when they were going through the COVID briefings, after Donald Trump went on that rage, the weird part about it is Mike Pence came down and kind of brought this. It was almost like he was slightly more presidential than Donald Trump was. And so that's going to be, so for me, that was a little weird in a way.
Melania Trump sounded more presidential when compared to Donald Trump, and she's from Slovenia.
Again, that's what I'm stating, though. So that's what I'm saying. It's a weird sense of, because of the fact, but this is the first time we've heard of Melania since forever. Mike Pence has actually been in front of us. So because he's been in front of us, he could bring some civility, if you will, to a degree, to the Republican Party in a sense. That's the only thing I can say they can give. But other than that, he's going to spew more lies. So they're going to do again. We're not running against Joe Biden. That's what they're saying. They're running against terrorists, black people.
Black people.
They're running against black people. They're running against Obama. Because they're not running against Biden, because everything they're trying to say was technically Obama and Biden was connected to it. So they're running against Obama again. The last thing I'll say is the one thing that I will say, which again, it's a huge contrast, which is kind of a blow to the Republican Party, is one line that Melania Trump said. And she said to them, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the line verbatim, but she said, I'm not going to do like everybody else did. And I'm not going to attack the other side. Space Force. But he gonna have the flag behind him, and he don't have the Space Force flags behind him. But she said, I'm not going to attack the other side because of I'm not going to attack them like everyone else has done. Oh wow, that's funny. And so she was a contrast. She was like, I'm not going to go against the other side. I'm not going to talk about everybody else. That's what everybody else has been doing. Which is interesting because again, everybody else has really been about what they're doing, and they're still, and now, unfortunately, what they're doing is they're talking about, again, stuff that he has done, which has not necessarily been absolutely positively amazing. Now, what I'm going to be interested to see is what comes about this Mike Pompeo situation being over in Jerusalem.
Yeah. So it wasn't appropriate, but it won't make a difference.
Yes, I am kind of interested in that regard.
The reality is no federal building should be used for campaign purposes. Mm-hmm. So the Trump campaign has violated American standard protocol every step of the way during this convention. Mm-hmm. But again, are we surprised? The fact that Melania was able to desecrate the Rose Garden, that was a representation of every first lady since 1913, indicates their lack of respect. We further saw desecration of America's values when tonight President Trump did a naturalization ceremony on live television or pre-recorded television during the Trumplican National Convention. Mm-hmm. All of those things truly stand to slap every American in the face and just completely piss on our traditions and what it means to be American. And the fact that anyone in this country would not recognize both of those things as disrespectful is really heartbreaking and shows how far those people have come away from the true values of democracy in this nation. Additionally, I would say what could happen tonight to make it any better. You know what? This is what can make it better, De'Andre. I'm going to tell you this. This is what could make it better. Mike Pence could get up on that microphone and he could give the speech that every Republican in the country wants him to give. But if he did that, he would piss off his boss and he probably wouldn't be vice president much longer. Mm-hmm. I believe that Mike Pence is very capable of giving a much better speech than what Donald Trump could give, but he won't do it because he's scared of offending Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. The last thing I want to say is that I hate Sissy Graham. I don't even know what her name is, but she made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I didn't want to go there, but I do have one last question for you. Because
I hate you, Sissy Graham.
I asked it on your page, and I'm actually curious of what, because I found it interesting because, I was so thrown off by, again, the pardon, and I was so thrown off about the citizenship ceremony. I was so thrown off by both of those. It was first out of bounds and it was weird. But I'm curious to know, because I found it. I asked this on your page, and I'm curious to you and anyone who's watching before we go. We make persons who are looking for naturalization and citizenship to our country, we make them take an oath. And there's this oath of allegiance. And I'm always curious to know, because I just realized that as Americans, we don't take this oath per se. And so I'm just curious about, what does this oath do? And are we not American because we don't take the oath? Like, what's the purpose of this exact oath? And where is it? I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, what is this purpose of this actual oath? It's weird to me.
It's to show fidelity to the country. It's really sharing and stating loyalty to America that we don't have to share or state because we're born here and we're naturalized citizens. That's what, that's the point of it. It's a symbolic representation of your actual fidelity to the country.
Which is funny because they said I would defend it, I would defend this nation to, but then it becomes, well, what happens to the people who don't say the Pledge of Allegiance? So, you have people
who don't have to say, you take that oath when you come out of the womb into this nation.
Okay. So the other thing I have is, we say, we take this oath and, we'll protect the fidelity of citizens, so forth. But it's interesting that, again, this is also a party that doesn't mind, again, who won't still speak on the killings, because even Nikki Haley talked about it. She talked about the killings when the young man went into the AME church and did the killings, but it's like they'll talk about
Ruth. Yeah, say his name.
Yeah,
who was taken peacefully in a cop car to, I think they stopped to feed him before he went to jail. Peacefully done so. Yeah. Dylan Ruth, murderer.
I didn't like
Dylan Ruth.
Yeah, I didn't like the fact that the young lady, I'm trying to remember which one she was. She was saying, I think she was she's the lieutenant governor of Florida. She was lieutenant governor of Florida, and she was saying that your story, my story is your story and everything else. No, your story is not my story. You come back and tell me when you can share your story about your people being oppressed and you're dealing with the struggle. I hate that whole your story is my story.
And Nikki Haley also, I want to emphasize that, Nikki Haley, she knows that she's a lot. She said, let me tell you what proves that a lot of what Nikki Haley said was a lie is that her name is Nimrata.
Right.
Nimrata. Okay. Her name is Nimrata.
You turn to a white woman.
You can't go by your birth name. Clearly indicates that you know what it means to be Nimrata in America. So shame on you and all that you said last night. And Andrew, here's an interesting point of fact. This is so crazy. I refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance in first grade. At some point in first grade, I forget what point it was or why I refused to say it, because I knew it was something that happened. Ronald Reagan was president when I was in first grade. I have to own up to that piece of my age. And at some point, I refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance as early as first grade. I said it. I still say it. But for whatever reason, on that day, I wasn't going to have it. Schmooze, over. And so we will continue to see what happens, and hopefully tomorrow will be just as disastrous and filled with lies as it was tonight. And hopefully tomorrow will be just as poorly viewed as it was on last night. So with that said,
I'm so confused because, we didn't hear a whole lot from Lamont tonight. I'm so confused.
Well, Lamont obviously thinks that we should get like an F because he's like, what is our grade on tonight?
Yeah, I'm like, he didn't say a whole lot tonight. I'm a little confused. He didn't disagree with nobody tonight. I'm weird.
But again, there really wasn't as much meat to really go with because it just didn't give it to us. And you're right. Nikki is like Ted, forgetting their heritage or disregarding their heritages in the same way that Vernon and Herschel and Daniel Cameron have done because they are beyond their race.
Yeah. Well, I have nothing else. I have no grade. I have nothing.
You're right. She used her heritage last night as a prop, as she's done probably for most of her life. And Right. You say they want to make sure. I also want to. This last point on Melania. I was surprised and interested in her military style dress. Like that dress was a nice, I'm sure, couture top line fashion, but it was certainly military style, and that was for me a surprising choice. And I kind of wondered why she made it. Lamont is working out, so sorry.
Lamont, that's very Republican of you. That is very Republican of you. Okay.
May whoever you lost or whoever you know that has passed and transitioned from life to everlasting life, may they rest in love. And I hope that you're having a good workout, because hopefully that person's above it now too. And it absolutely, when I tell you that dress tonight gave me every bit of Boris and Natasha. That is it. That's awful, Jamel. That Bullwinkle.
But I will tell you, I'm sorry. That walk from that point.
That is awful on so many levels. But that right there is a great way to end the broadcast. Everybody, we will see you tomorrow. Join in and be ready to type in. You watch it, but don't tell anybody else to watch it, because we want those ratings to be low. Tulsi, but listen, honestly, that has been a major question. Where is Tulsi Gabbard? People have asked that question. They thought they would see her. People have also said, where is Candace Owens? I think we're going to see Angie, the 2 raisins and milk tomorrow. I'm excited to see them. I always get a good chuckle from seeing those 2 raisins and milk, even if I'm not going to see, Auntie Candace or Tulsi Gabbard.
The Republicans are very clear because they're pulling people from their lineups, because tonight they pulled somebody.
Yeah, they pulled that lady who
anti-Semitic remarks. So they pulling people. So if they're trying to.
Maybe Candace is gonna get to slide in and they pull somebody out. As long as we get to see the 2 raisins and milk, Diamond and Silk, I'm going to be happy. All right, everybody, we will see you on tomorrow night.